Men aren't going to therapy, and it's killing them. Everyone knows that. The statistics are grim. Men are nearly 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. Only 42% of men with a diagnosable mental health condition ever receive any treatment. And those numbers have barely moved in decades. So here's the question nobody's asking. If men aren't going to therapy, and the numbers are still this bad, what actually moves the needle? What actually changes a man? A peer-reviewed study came out this month and it has a real answer. And I think it's worth talking about because it validates something that most people in the mental health establishment would rather not admit. What works for men, they discovered, is podcasts and YouTube videos. Yeah, that's right. I'm Cody DeLong, and this is King of Me. The study was published this month in a peer-reviewed journal, and it looked at something specific. What do men actually gain from listening to men's mental health podcasts and videos? Not what the researchers hoped they'd gain, what the men themselves reported. 5 things came back consistently. Men said they felt less isolated. Hearing other men talk honestly about hard things made them feel less alone. They reported being more open to vulnerability, not performing it, just being more willing to sit with their own real feelings. They said it gave them a way to examine the old masculinity scripts they'd been running on without realizing it. They found a model for what seeking help could look like. Not weakness, just useful information. And they described something that the researchers called a culture of positive masculinity. Men being direct, honest, and self-aware without apologizing for being men. The title of the research summary says it plainly. Despite toxic reputation, our research shows podcasts can help men's mental health. That's a peer-reviewed finding. And the medium isn't the point. The mechanism is. This isn't a criticism of therapy. Therapy works. And if you're in crisis, go. If you have access and the inclination, use it. I've done it and I found it useful. The problem isn't that men don't want to feel better. It's that getting help, the way it's usually packaged, requires you to do things that feel deeply uncomfortable. Admitting something is broken, out loud, to a stranger, in a room designed for processing feelings, when you've spent 40 years being told your job is to handle things, not feel them, and then going back the following week and doing it again. And for most men of a certain age, paying someone to listen to you talk about yourself just doesn't compute in terms of value. That's a lot of friction. And most men, when the friction is high enough, just don't go. Not because they're weak, but because the on-ramp doesn't match how they're built. So they white-knuckle it instead. More work, drink more, go quieter, manage the surface and leave the interior alone. And the numbers remain the same. Here's what the study found was actually happening for men who are changing. They were in their cars or trucks or their garages or with headphones on a run, alone. Nobody watching. And they were listening to a man, a real man, a regular man, not a therapist, not a life coach with a course to sell, just a man they can relate to, talking honestly about something hard. And something in them shifted. Not because they performed vulnerability, not because they sat across from someone and said the words out loud, but because they received something privately, on their own terms, with no one watching and no pressure to respond. They could just sit with it, think about it, come back to it, share it with someone if they wanted to or not. And for older men especially, that's what actually works. A man they respect, being honest, in a space where they can receive without having to demonstrate anything. No one is grading them. No one is waiting for them to break down. They just hear something true and it lands somewhere it needed to land. That's how men actually change. Not in a room with a stranger, in a truck, on the way to work, alone, with something someone said that they can't stop thinking about. A line that makes sense, settles in, and begins to take root. A question they didn't know they needed to ask themselves. This isn't a bug in masculinity, it's a feature. Men are wired to learn through watching other men, through peer example, through seeing someone they respect handle something in a way they hadn't considered. For thousands of years, that happened in person, around fires, in workshops, in the field. Men learned what it meant to be a man by watching men be men. But that transmission got interrupted by the collapse of male community, by a culture that stopped producing credible male role models and replaced them with either cartoons of dominance or apologies for existing. What the study found is that the transmission is still happening, just through different channels. A man in his truck listening to another man talk plainly about real things is receiving something real. It counts. It moves him. That's what this channel is all about. Not therapy, not a replacement for professional help when you need it, just an on-ramp. A place where you can hear something, sit with it, and maybe change one thing, one decision, one conversation you have with yourself on the way home. That's enough. That's how it starts. One man changes something about himself. He holds his ground a little more steadily. He's a little less afraid of his own interior. He has a clearer sense of what he values and why. That affects his relationships, his kids, his friends, the men around him who notice he's carrying himself a little differently and wonder what's changed. The ripple goes wider than the individual. It always does. Men changing themselves is not a small thing, just a quiet one. The King of Me field guide is linked in the description. It's a 2-pillar framework: who you're becoming and how you navigate your world. It's free, and it's a place to start. Subscribe. There's more coming. Stop drifting and start leading.